Let me pause this, turn it down, and we'll get this done. So this is a new interview that they did. Apparently, people told me that it was a very good interview. They covered a lot of things that were very important. Obviously, they're probably going to talk about, of course, transmog, RP realm, phasing concerns, and the new store mount. So let's get into this and see what they're going to say. The music's good. I never noticed that, but music actually is good.
It's not a secret that the current mood of the community is not the best. Like, as a fan site, we are reading a lot of comments, watching videos, and so on. And to be...
Look at Ian's hair. That's the hair of somebody... Oh, louder? Okay, I'll turn it up, sorry. That's the hair of someone who's had to read comments of people complaining about PvP vendors, and then whenever there were PvP vendors, people complaining that they couldn't find them. Okay? He's not happy. Same here? Yeah, that's basically my hairline.
To be honest, it's really frustrating to see the negativity about almost every aspect of the game.
Okay.
Especially because we do work with such a passion about what you do and stuff like that. And what do you think? Why is this extreme since the release of Battle for Azeroth?
That's a good question. Why do you think people are mad?
We don't really understand why it is like this. I don't know if it's easy to answer or if you want to answer or something.
It's definitely not easy to answer. It's something that I spend a lot of time thinking about myself. You know, it's frustrating and honestly painful even. You know, all of us who are making this game, part of the joy of working in the industry that we do and getting to work on a game like World of Warcraft is, you know, our goal is to make people happy. We want to bring people pleasure, fun experiences, and escapes, and just a world of magic.
Magic.
And
it's good.
I think
I want to be a wizard.
We're human. We make mistakes. We're not perfect. Yep. We try to recognize those mistakes, learn from them, and improve things going forward.
That's good.
There's one thing that I could stress to the community. It's that, God, do we care? Like, we care deeply about this. Everyone on the team, 300 people on the team, we are out there on Reddit and Twitter and the official forums and fan sites, reading all the comments, and we understand that a lot of it, you know, comes from a place of it comes from a place of pain almost. It comes from a place of passion.
I think really, like, why people are frustrated is, like, you can have something like PvP vendors or like Titan forging, for example, or like removal of master. I think PvP vendors are probably the easiest and least contentious example, where pretty much everyone, like, there are some people that like Titan forging, there are some people that don't like master loot, right? But there's almost nobody that doesn't like PvP vendors. And the reason why people think that they're not listening is because there can somehow be a unified feeling in the entire community of, we want something that the game has had for 10 years to come back, and they say no. It seems like they're not listening, right? And, like, I get if the answer is no, but I mean, at a certain point, it's like, how many people need to want this for it to happen? You know what I mean? It's just like, come on.
People feel like there's this game they love, that they have a deep connection to, and there's something about it that's going in a direction that they don't like, that's frustrating to them. They find themselves not looking forward to logging in the way they used to.
Yeah.
And lash out comes from a place of emotion. And that's a testament to the deep connection people have to World of Warcraft as a game. And it's a challenge for us to fix it. I mean, and I think one of the challenges with World of Warcraft,
that's true.
It actually touched on this recently in the most recent live Q&A, is there are very diverse audiences and playstyles that exist and coexist within Azeroth in WoW. And often, you know, when players may accuse us of being out of touch, it's not that we don't understand their concerns and don't understand what they would like the game to be.
Yeah.
The problem is that we're also trying to keep in mind another half dozen groups of players who may want the game to be different things, and often directly.
How are you ever gonna, like, how's that ever gonna work? I mean, functionally, like, how can you have? It's like playing whack-a-mole, and there's like 50 moles. Like it's like you go to the arcade and there's 9 and you're overwhelmed, but there's fucking 50 moles. Like there's too many fucking moles. You can't make every target audience happy. It's impossible. If you do that, you make 5 people happy and 50 people mad. That's what keeps happening, is you just keep trying to make, they're basically rotating. They're like, we're gonna make 5 people here happy and then everybody else mad, but don't worry, in like, 6 months or a year, it's gonna be your turn to be happy and then we're gonna make them mad instead. And so they're just making everybody mad, all in basically a rotation, and just like, that's not working. I mean, like, why would you even it's a mistake to even try to go in that direction, I think.
Posing things, and we're also thinking about the long-term future and how these systems and how these changes are going to play out in the long run. Now, I don't blame players for this. Players have every right to just focus on their own experience. If all you care about is high-end PvP, I don't expect you to, say, okay, I'm having less fun, but I'm okay with this because some other player out there is having more fun as a result.
Yeah, I don't
it's
think
okay to be
anybody would
upset.
think that.
But the only thing I would like to stress is we care. Like, this isn't a situation where we're sitting back and we're like, okay, well, whatever. This is something that actively is occupying a large amount of our attention, and we want nothing more than for everyone to be as happy as possible. And then in terms of why, parts of it are also just, I don't mean this to sound like in any way an excuse or deflecting blame.
They're just mad to be mad.
I think the internet in general is a place that's become a bit more polarized, a bit more prone to just extreme viewpoints, and it's more about getting anger and opinions out there and less about finding common ground and looking for places of agreement. And I think you see that across a wide range of subjects, politics certainly. And so I think all of those things.
I think that's true. I mean, it's definitely true. I remember, like, I learned in marketing class when I was still in business school that you're 9 times more likely to get feedback from a negative encounter or a negative experience a customer has than a positive experience. And so this isn't something that's just like the internet. I mean, this is like a codified, like, logical thing that are in books. And it's very clear that, yeah, obviously people that are mad are going to be more likely to give feedback than people who are happy, because people who are happy just shut the fuck up and they don't care, and they just go do their own thing and they play the game and they enjoy it on their own. I think that's absolutely, like, true, but to the extent that, like, the feedback is, like, universally negative, especially with, like, certain things, or not universally, but like 95%, like negative, 99% negative, and the people that are okay with it are usually doing different things in the game or not really playing the game seriously at all. I think that's really the concern. Like, I don't really know hardly any hardcore or high-end players that are happy with the state of the game. I mean, you can say, like, the casual players are or they're not, but I think really the reason they're happy or they're satisfied with the state of the game is because they don't experience the game in enough ways to be able to form an opinion about it one way or another. So if the game was the same as it used to be in Burning Crusade, they'd still be happy with it probably, because they're not experiencing enough of the game to really be able to reach and hit those limitations to begin with. So it's like if you're playing in Classic WoW, you never really worried about, like, oh man, attunements are really hard to make it to get into raids, because you spent the entire time leveling up because you were a fucking kid and your mom only let you get on the computer for 2 hours. So you never really were able to hit those limitations to begin with. And I think that's what a lot of casual players do now, is they just go and they do world quests and never really hit those walls that the high-end players hit. So if Blizzard changes those walls, I don't think that would really affect the casual player base, because they're not interfacing with them to begin with.
Have culminated in the situation that we see. There's a lot that we're proud of in Battle for Azeroth. I also want to make it clear that I'm not sitting here apologizing for everything. There's a ton of great work the team has done. We just went into Battle of Dazar'alor a few days ago, and I think it's great reception from the community there. Tons of fun being had on both Horde and Alliance sides.
That's good. They're having fun.
And we have a very bright future ahead of us with the majority of Battle for Azeroth's patch content still to come. We're just in Tides of Vengeance. 815 is on the PTR. If you think back to this time in Legion, there was much more to follow. And as much as possible, we're focused on learning from mistakes that we made with systems and rewards at the start of Battle for Azeroth. And I think there's been a lot of work done in Tides of Vengeance to correct those so far, and even more to follow.
Thank you. It seems like one of the bigger complaints of the community was the endgame itemization. On the one hand, the community needs to catch-up things for new players and alts, and on the other hand it feels like there are no real advantages for players who are playing the game real intense day after day. And yes, of course, we are playing the game to have fun with or without our friends, for example in raids and PvP, but a good gear progression should also be a part of the game, and we would like to know if why there was this change between classic Burning Crusade and stuff, where you had this progression, if you know what I mean. I hope.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, exactly.
Okay.
I mean, so I think that's, to some extent, that's the way the game has been really for the last 10 years. I think you're right in calling out Classic and Burning Crusade as a different era.
Yeah.
I think really it was Wrath of the Lich King when Trial of the Crusader came out in patch 3.2 back then, and that gear was a strict replacement.
See, even he knows where the break point was. He knows. TOC was it. That was it. The game stopped being good in TOC. And I don't want to say it stopped being good, right? But it stopped, I don't know, it stopped growing in terms of being compelling, right? I don't know exactly how to phrase it to where it's actually completely accurate. But TOC was a turning point for the game, and I think it was a turning point for the worst, right? You had TOC completely invalidate everything that came from Ulduar. The boss fights were generally less complex and less compelling, right? The raid in general was, very clearly there was less work put in Trial of the Crusader than Ulduar. It completely invalidated all content before that except for Valinir. It was just a complete fucking mistake to do that. And then after that, TOC was the first raid that you had 4 different difficulties of the same raid. You had 10-man normal, 10-man heroic, 25-man normal, 25-man heroic. And at that point, every single time that a new tier would come out, all of the gear from the previous tier would be completely replaced. And this didn't happen before then. So an example for this is the Trial of the Crusader dungeons, right? It dropped 200 and 213 item level gear, which is the equivalent of Naxxramas. So you could take that gear and maybe buy a few badge gears, pieces of gear, and just go right into 10-man TOC and skip Ulduar completely. And before then, you weren't able really to do that to get into Ulduar. You still had to do Naxx to get into Ulduar. And that was the point where raids in the current expansion no longer mattered. There it was, TOC.
And Ulduar gear. That was probably the first time that there was no need to go back and do old content. And that's part of striking the balance that I was talking about in my answer to the prior question, where it's important that gear matters, it's important that power matters,
Yep.
Progression feels great.
He knows.
But we also want the game to remain accessible to people who are joining a bit later or who are coming back. And that
There's 8 or 9 million people playing the game at that point. How's it not accessible if there's that many people playing it? The end game was accessible. The problem is you made the whole game around the end game. The reason I've always thought vanilla was better than Burning Crusade is that there was more content in vanilla than just level 70 in Burning Crusade. You had all the 60 stuff. You had 40 dungeons that were integrated into leveling up and getting gear for 60 stuff. There was a lot more of interplay that happens. And in Burning Crusade, there's just 70, right? Which for an in-game raider is great, but for an MMO, I don't think is as good. And in Wrath, that completely became the case in TOC. TBC was fine. I thought TBC was incredible, okay? I love TBC. But I just thought vanilla was better. It might be my personal preference, but that's the way I'd like to see an MMO more than TBC.
It's not just in the interests of those players, it's also in the interests of guilds. All through Burning Crusade, the period that you ask about, guilds complained bitterly about having to, go back and get people attuned in Serpent Shrine and Tempest Keep, and the fact that when they wanted to recruit a new raider or someone...
That's so true. Because the story that I told yesterday about Cody, me having to go back and get Cody the gear and everything, and us doing that raid on the weekend for SSC and TK, and we took him in there and we got him all the gear. The reason we did that is because people weren't keyed. So yeah, this is the case. But I figure I think the keying runs were more fun. They were more positive than negative. At least it got people to play with alts, to pug. It got high-end players to play with lower-end players. It was better overall.
Was coming back, they had to, go back and do this content that felt irrelevant to them. those were huge hurdles that actually made it much harder to recruit, made it much harder to get into raiding as a whole. And so, being able...
I don't think it made it harder to get into raiding, because what it was is like, you'd start in tier 4 and you'd do tier 4 content. So you weren't trying to get into tier 6. Like, yeah, you're right. The attunements and everything made it hard to where if you were trying to get into raiding, you didn't just immediately join a tier 6 guild. You joined a tier 5 guild, a tier 4 guild. You built your time up. You killed Vosh. You killed Kale. Maybe you killed one boss in BT, and then you quit the guild after they gave you a good item, and you joined an actual guild that could kill Illidan, right? It's not like you just go from point A to point Z. Back then, you went A, B, C, D, right? And whatever else comes after that. That's the way that it used to work. So yeah, obviously it made it hard to get into tier 6 guild, but it didn't make it harder to get into raiding because people would still do Karazhan and Gruul's Lair and shit.
To, if you come back and you want to do Battle of Dazar'alor today, maybe you didn't play since September or you didn't play Battle for Azeroth at all, you can't just jump in right away. But there's a faster path to get to the point where you'll be able to contribute than spending 3 or 4 months, clearing Uldir every week and doing Mythic Plus. Very recently, I would say,
who would spend 3 to 4 months?
There was kind of an exceptional case there where that patch introduced catch-up mechanisms designed to get people ready for Battle of Dazar'alor.
Yeah.
But Battle of Dazar'alor didn't open until this week, in large part because of the holiday season, and that was just a timing issue. I think it's very likely that in Rise of Ashara, in the next tier, we'll see the raid open immediately after the patch, maybe just a couple of weeks after. So there won't be this large gap. So I agree that, having...
And that would also be good because people are like so cynical now. They assume that the reason they postponed Battle of Dazar'alor was so they could extend people's subs an extra month, right? And it's like, I'm not fully convinced that's not true, but them doing it to where the raid comes out within a month of the patch, I think is good even for them, because then people just don't come back and they don't even get a chance to play the raid and they unsub because there's nothing for them to fucking do. It's a double-edged sword.
The Tides of Vengeance catch-up mechanisms in place when the only current raid content was Uldir felt like maybe, yeah, we were giving away a bit too much compared to the raid, but that was more of a one-time thing than a long-term philosophy change.
Okay, cool, thanks. We know that you talked about the Whaler points yesterday in your question and answering. It was about upgrading gear pieces and item progression and stuff. But we would like to know why there is no different currencies anymore to purchase gear, like a bit comparable to the option of buying Azerite pieces now in Battle for Azeroth.
Yeah.
And because that's something cool. You just work for something and you can just buy an item every week or two. Yeah, why don't we have something like that anymore?
Yeah, I mean, so we have the Titan Residuum for Azerite armor. In Legion we had Nether Shards and the Veiled Argonite on Argus as part of the patch content.
That's not the same, dude. Like, it's not the same, man. Like, what are you talking about? Like, you're gonna say a vendor that, I mean, like, you played Vanilla and Burning Crusade and Wrath. Like, what are you talking about? This fucking random trinket vendor is the same as the badge vendor in Wrath. Like, give me a fucking break. It's not the same. Everybody knows it's not the same. People don't want to fucking gamble 8 different trinkets, spend all day in Argus picking up boxes and killing the same rare spawns that they've been killing for a month so they can identify a trinket and have it be a haste mastery trinket that they don't even fucking need. Give me a break. Like, that's not the same thing.
The
Residium is good. But the Nether Shards and Veiled Argonite are absolutely not. They were not good.
It's definitely not something we've completely moved away from. I think ideally there is a place for that. We'd like to strike a balance where there is some loot that you get randomly. You kill a boss and hopefully your item drops. And then on the other hand, you have this system of guaranteed progression that you can work towards through currencies.
Good. That worked in Burning Crusade and Wrath. That's literally exactly what they had. They had the badge vendor that you could work towards pieces of gear, and you could get those pieces of gear. And then also there were bosses that dropped gear at the same time, and you could mix and match based off of what you got lucky with and what you wanted to focus on. That's what you guys already fucking had. Like, what do you mean we're gonna do this? This is what you've been doing.
We probably can do more for that, particularly on the raid and dungeon side. And I think on the PvP side right now, Conquest provides that guaranteed gear track where no matter what, that as you earn Conquest, you will earn all of these rewards, which is then complemented by end of match rewards and your weekly chest rewards if you're doing rated PvP that give you a chance at exciting upgrades.
Mm-hmm. Maybe it's a bit early to ask this question, but if you could change 2 or 3 things prior BFA release, what would it be?
That's an interesting question.
Yeah.
It depends on how far back I can go with my time machine. You know, I think a
Yeah.
lot of what we did in Tides of Vengeance reflects the lessons we learned and some of the regrets from the launch of Battle for Azeroth. It's changes to systems like islands, like on expeditions, like Azerite armor.
Yeah.
A lot of tuning there. And so I think a lot of those concerns
There's not going to be an
revolve around, you know, the initial tuning and structure of those systems. Going back even further, I think there are some more fundamental issues with the Azerite armor system that players have done a good job of pointing out, and that we are looking to really pivot away from and correct with Rise of Ashara. I think we're happy with it from a customization perspective, from the perspective of making items that have greater depth and are more interesting than, you know, our traditional helms or shoulder pieces that just have crit or haste or mastery, where you can actually.
Well, we had that though. Like we had, look, we had that. Just a second. Let me show you guys. See, where is it? Where's one of my? Oh, there's one right there. Can you guys see that one? No, you can't. Just a second. Look, we had this. See, we had like we had that with like meta sockets, and we had, oh, look at this one, had enchants on the helmet. We already had these. This already happened. We had sockets in all of the gear, the enchants, and like the enchants on weapons, the dancing steel. Like, come on, like, what do you mean? Like, this is something. They've taken the customization out. They've taken the depth out of the items, and that was intent. Like, how can you say you want to put it in there whenever you said you want to?
Choose from a number of different options, and especially with the new system with 5 rings and Tides of Vengeance, you can pick many more different combinations, and, you know, emphasize one aspect of your class versus another. That's, I think, an interesting and successful system. The progression of unlocking those traits through earning artifact power, I think, was a little bit of a mismatch with that system. And so that's why, as we look ahead to Rise of Ashara, we just want to keep the armor pieces fully unlocked and have a different avenue for progression in the Heart of Azeroth, that artifact itself.
Yeah, we are looking forward to it because it sounds really interesting.
That is our hope.
Okay,
yeah.
Let's talk about the current stuff and the patch 8.1.
Sure.
Season 2 has just begun, and the new raid is a real blast. Although raid tests already have been fun, it was even more fun to play the encounters on the live servers. And
except for Storm
there
and
are
Blockade.
a lot of new and unique mechanics, like the Treasure Guardian with his golems and traps and stuff like
It was a
that.
good fight.
What's your favorite fight in the new raid? If you can say something about that.
I'm sorry, yeah, I've obviously, you know, other than internal testing, I've also just done it the one time with my guild this week. So at least from heroic mode, probably tied between Opulence and Mechatorque.
I would say Opulence
the Treasure
is
Guard,
the best.
I think that I really like the way the split raid works out. It reminds me of, you know, doing something like Thorum back in Ulduar a long time ago, right? Where you have your separate group going down a hallway with their unique set of challenges. Just very cool flavor. Really integrates the environment. And then Mechatorque is it's just a fun fight. You're fighting the King of the Gnomes, and the whole dynamic of frantically calling out what color people are to help them defuse their robots. That's, you know, just a ton of fun and a new aspect of communication.
I don't know about that, dude. I didn't like that.
It's a pretty cool fight.
That was annoying.
It's like the mechanics are. I don't know. I really like Mechatorque.
Okay.
Yeah. In addition to the battle for Dazalaror, sorry, I can't really pronounce his name.
Neither can we. I'm sorry. Blame the trolls.
Okay, cool. There is also the smaller Crucible of Storm raid in Season 2. Can we expect it to open with the release of patch 8.15? And can you tell something about
when does that come out?
It's not the higher rate here, so what can we expect?
So I think definitely that the Crucible serves as a bridge between Battle of Dazar'alor and Rise of Ashara and the raid content that's going to come there. So I'd expect it to open later on during the tier.
Okay.
Not necessarily directly when 8.15 launches, but probably not too long after that. I think we'll see. As far as the rewards, the item level on that isn't quite final yet. I think we're going to look at where the player base is as a whole. I mean, it's only a 2-boss raid, so it wouldn't surprise me if kind of like Trial of Valor was a little bit higher than Emerald Nightmare. Those 2 bosses drop a slightly higher item level base gear compared to Battle of Dazar'alor.
Oh, okay.
But I think
That's
we'll
probably
make
a
that
good
final
idea.
decision when we see what the average item level of active raiders is at when it comes time to open the raid.
Okay, cool. Faction assault.
That way they know how to increase it by 15 and then make all the Battle of Dazar'alor gear irrelevant. I don't know if that's going to happen or not, but I mean, like, that kind of did happen, like, with Emerald Nightmare. Like, as soon as TOV came out, people just tried to get as much gear as possible from TOV, and Emerald Nightmare was like, ah, fuck, we got to do this again. We hate this.
Combined with the war mode are really fun, and before patch 8.1 war mode wasn't that exciting, especially as an alliance player.
Yes.
Now it's better, but still not perfect. Like, sharding with disappearing and appearing players is one problem.
Yeah.
Or the fact that the looking for dungeon tool is not able to filter players with or without war mode enabled. Like, you always have to write it up if you have war mode on or off.
I didn't even know that was true or not. Like, I actually thought that you only saw people in the Dungeon Finder or the Group Finder that had War Mode on or off based off of what you had. I didn't even know this was fucking true. Wow. That's great. No, not Walmart off, War Mode.
And it's also hard to play with friends if they don't have War Mode enabled. Like, you want to summon someone,
Yes.
for example, and then you have to check, you know, probably what I'm talking about. Do you have any further plans to improve this system?
I mean, those are all, I agree, those are all challenges. I think some of them are also just a part of the restrictions that enable the system to exist in the first place. In terms of summoning, you can summon people who are in the opposite war mode, setting as you, but you just need somebody else to help click with you, right? Two people can get together to a summoning stone, summon a group mate who is in war mode when they're not, and that person will get summoned. For outdoor content, it should automatically filter groups according to war mode. Like, if you're looking for a group to do a world quest, and you have war mode on, it won't show people who don't have war mode on. Now, if you're looking to do a Mythic Plus or some other content that's instanced, then yes, it'll mix war mode and non-war mode, but the only thing that really should impact is some minor challenges while summoning. The way it works with sharding is ultimately what enables war mode to exist, because I think if it were in the old school way, if it were more server-based, so many of our realms at this point are very, very imbalanced. They're very heavy Horde dominated or very heavy Alliance dominated.
That's true.
And that was one of the reasons why we introduced War Mode to begin with, because World PvP was becoming increasingly, honestly, almost non-existent, because even on PvP servers, there were such faction imbalances that it was just an unpleasant experience.
This is actually great. Like, back in the day, whenever I was playing Alliance and I was on Kel'Thuzad, I would see rare spawns more often than I would see Horde. Like, if somebody actually saw a Horde player, there would be like a message in general chat, and like 5 people would come and just like kill this guy over and over and over and over until like somehow he had to like log out or something. It was amazing. And it's like, obviously it doesn't make a good world PvP experience, but it's funny as fuck.
And then the outnumbered faction felt like, they were just trapped there and often felt like they needed to pay for a server transfer if they wanted to escape. War Mode gives everybody a chance to decide whether they want a PvP experience or not. And we have to bring people together from different servers to make relatively balanced shards that have both Horde and Alliance present. And so sharding definitely causes some inconveniences in the outdoor world gameplay, but we think what it enables with War Mode PvP is worth it.
Okay.
I think that's true.
I was just thinking about, because when I did the world boss last week, I had this issue with War Mode on, War Mode off, because I was looking for a group in the dungeon browser, and somehow that doesn't work, because you mentioned it earlier.
Interesting. So if you're in the custom group section, then that you have to put the information in manually. But if you're doing a world quest, like if you go to where the world boss is and you just click the green eye, that setting should completely respect war mode or not, and won't match you across settings.
Well, then why?
Good to know, because I for myself didn't know that. But
yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we should do a better job of documenting that for sure. I think the challenge with custom groups is we don't know what the custom can be anything, right? You could be putting together a transmog run or something else that shouldn't respect war mode, so we just let players put the information in themselves.
Okay. Legion was all about class identity. There have been class order halls, legendaries, class campaigns, artifacts, and so on. And I think a lot of players were really happy about it, like us, for example. It felt like our heroes were really important, and now in Battle for Azeroth there's almost nothing like that. We don't really have an identity anymore with
I would say that's true.
Connection
I mean,
to our character that we have been in Legion, like just one expansion apart. Earlier, like we are in now, and no
these are actually good
progress in
questions.
our character development. Why did you decide to go this way, like this difference between Legion and BFA?
I think part of it is the stories of the expansions. I think Legion began with the factions failing and breaking almost. They failed at the Broken Shore, and what rose to fill that void were the class order halls. And so it was very much an expansion focused, as you note, on class identity.
Okay.
Battle for Azeroth is focused more on faction identity, on being Horde, on being Alliance, on what that means. We're also looking at racial identity with things like heritage armor lines that are being introduced. Now, class identity remains important. It's just not a central focus of the expansion. I think we are still, whether it's improving the visual fidelity of classes like what Holy Paladins received in Tides of Vengeance.
I mean, that's true. I mean, they can't make every single game, like, or every single expansion focused around class identity. I think it's important. But, like, making it the focus in the same way it was in Legion, obviously they can't focus on that every time.
Or just finding ways to make you feel special for playing a shaman or a warlock or a rogue. It's something we're always looking to do. I mean, we understand that players view Azeroth, view World of Warcraft through the lens of the class they play, and that's super important. But we don't think it can always be the center of every story we're telling.
That's true. That's understandable. Well, thanks. From Warlords to Legion, a lot of the talent trees changed from utility-oriented roles, where a lot of them were used in a few situations or based on player preferences, to having many throughput roles with relatively few utility roles. If you know what I'm...
perhaps, yes, I think.
How do you think that has worked out, and is it a design decision you'd consider revisiting?
I'm not sure there was a conscious decision to move away from utility.
Is that even true? Like, let me look at my talents here. Like, what is considered utility? Like, this is utility. I mean, this is kind of utility too. This is like in between utility. I mean, I mean, it seems like 2 of the rows are utility. That's a lot.
And I think throughput rows, part of the value there is to give players control over
maybe it's
some of their
classes.
strengths and weaknesses, or just customizing their rotation a little bit. Do you prefer a more proc-driven gameplay style, or do you want something that's simpler and more passive, or do you want an all-new ability to include in your rotation? And so I think we can give players those choices. That lets people find something that feels best for them within the given specialization. Also, for higher end players, they'll be able to customize themselves to excel in different situations depending on whether they're doing a dungeon or PvP or a specific boss encounter that favors a certain talent.
Why is the mouse pointer on his forehead?
Utility, I think
look at it.
We've certainly tried to move away from mixing utility and throughput, because when we put a utility option against something that is just making you do more damage or heal more effectively, those often don't feel like interesting decisions. So that may be some of the changes that we've made. Other aspects of it are just making sure that we're not homogenizing classes too much, that we're not, with one of the dangers with utility is if everyone has access to everything, then
that's what happens.
People feel less special with their individual
that's
tools.
Exactly what happened.
And so we've pulled away from some of the talents that were, giving classes abilities that really were traditionally not, that were more traditionally weaknesses. Someone has to be very mobile. Someone has to be less good at movement. Demon hunters and
that's what happened in Mists of Pandaria. Like, everybody had a heal, everybody had a DR, everybody had an immunity, everybody had a movement ability, everybody had everything, and it was too many fucking buttons. I understand a lot of people like Mists of Pandaria, I get it, but I think the balance, like Cataclysm or something like that, or Wrath, was better overall for the game in making the classes feel more unique. Especially for people that aren't like super high-end players. Like, if you're a really high-end player, you fucking loved MoP, obviously, because you had a million different things you could do. But for most people, I think it was just too complex. Like, there were too many core rotational abilities and core abilities you needed to have that you had to think about. And it made it too difficult. That's my opinion.
monks are at the high end of the spectrum there, and classes like Death Knights or Paladins are a bit less mobile. They still have talents like Divine Steed or Death's Advance, but that's not supposed to be their strength. And so in the past, where maybe they had a few more movement options than really were appropriate for that class, that was something that was actually taking away from their identity.
Talking about talents, why did you convert so many baseline abilities and passives of different classes into talents? For example, Affliction Warlock's talents are 70% something we already saw like 2 expansions ago as baseline spells. Like, for example, Lingering Insanity and Shadowbird Death.
Yeah. See, this is a bad idea. That's true. And I think this is a mistake that they made, is that it made it harder for people to learn other specs, because the more abilities that you have that are universal to your class and not exclusive to your spec, make it easier for you to go from one spec to another, because you're already used to dealing with a lot of the abilities that the spec has. And what they've done now is they basically have like 36, I think they've even said this, they've got 36 different classes now. It's impossible to fucking balance, and it's hard for people to go from like Fire Mage to Frost Mage, because it's a completely different playstyle. Like back in the day, you'd have Fire Blast as a Frost Mage, so you'd understand, okay, this is Fire Blast, and you'd have Arcane Explosion, and there was some overlap, and it would be easier for you to go from playing one spec to another. Now, I think it's just too much difference between the specs, and Blizzard should realize that a mage is still a mage. It's like, how are you going to not know how to do Arcane Explosion? Like, mages knew how to do Arcane Explosions for 9 years, and then suddenly they just forgot? Come on.
Shadow Priests are on the same level like the Affliction Warlocks?
Yeah, so a lot of that was done in past expansions, like in Warlords and Legion. There's definitely, we talked about this at length at the time as part of just general pruning, looking at where we had ended up adding new abilities to classes every expansion for 10 years, and classes having 30, 40 abilities in their spellbook, where you barely had enough keybind space for them, and a lot of these abilities were very niche and narrow in their use. As we removed things, we heard a lot of feedback from passionate players that loved certain abilities, and that led us to try to find a way to give people the choice, if they like those abilities, to be able to keep them. So I think that's how baseline abilities ended up turning into talents. But that's, I think, a product of a philosophy that was really of a higher priority for us a few years ago. When we sit around today, we don't think that classes have too many abilities. That's not a problem we're trying to solve. And I think we're open to adding baseline abilities, to moving things back to baseline where it makes sense.
Yeah.
And so I think it's more a product of what the team was focused on, maybe during Warlords and early Legion, less so about Battle for Azeroth.
All right, that's good. That's good.
Let's talk about the future.
Sure.
The next big thing is going to be patch 8.2, and the biggest highlight on your presentation was Nashiata. But it was also a really cool surprise to see Mechagon?
Yes.
I don't know.
Yes, Mechagon.
Okay. Can you tell us a little bit more about it? Like, is it just a new mega dungeon, or is it a new zone? And
a mega dungeon?
What are we going to do there?
What?
So I think
what is this?
I have to apologize in advance. I'm probably not going to say too much more than what we said at BlizzCon.
Okay.
But just to clarify, yes, Mechagon is a second smaller zone than Nashitar, which is the main zone for Rise of Ashara.
Okay.
There's a mega dungeon that is similar to Karazhan, just as we said at BlizzCon. I think we'll have a ton more information to share on all of the details there, and what you're going to be doing, and what the rewards are, and what the story is in the not too distant future. I think after 8.15 is out and off PTR, as we've come to expect, we'll probably see Rise of Ashara going up on the PTR not too long after that, and we'll have tons of information to share at that point.
That's real fast.
Can we talk about mecha gnomes and allied races?
I mean, we can. You can talk about it. I'm not sure I'm going to.
Wow.
I mean, there's a lot that I think it's always exciting to see people get interested in and speculate about what the next allied race is going to be and what would be cool to play. We still haven't necessarily finalized every single one of those decisions, so it's exciting to hear feedback from the community about what is most exciting to them.
Okay, good.
It sounded like you want to try something new with Nashiata, or combine a lot of things from other endgame zones. At BlizzCon, you said we will see something new every day, most likely for a specific period of time. Could you give us some examples of how you want to achieve this?
Something new every day.
Like I
That's a
said,
lot.
unfortunately, not quite yet. I think our focus right now is on 815 and getting that polished up and getting that into players' hands.
Okay.
We'll have a lot more to talk about the details of that. But yes, just to underscore what Jeremy said at BlizzCon, I think the goal with Nazjatar is to learn from everything that we've done in our past endgame outdoor zones, whether it's Argus, whether it's Broken Shore, whether it's just standard endgame world quests and level up, and kind of improve upon and combine the best of all of those worlds.
Mm-hmm. Probably the question was too far into the future. Well,
no problem at
all. Probably there are rares and treasure chests again on these two zones.
Oh!
And, to be honest, treasure chests on Kulrias and Sandala are pretty boring because you just open them and you get a bit of war resources. And you
see, this is like one of those little fucking things that nobody thinks about. But back in vanilla WoW, whenever you were questing and killing some wolves, and you saw a spider, and you killed the spider, and you turned to your right, and there was a fucking chest, there was a big silver treasure chest, you felt like a fucking winner. Okay, even now, if I see a vanilla WoW treasure chest, I feel better about that than if I see one for a level 120, because I know what that's gonna have. It's gonna be fucking boring. Treasure chests should be treasure chests. Like, they're not anymore. They're just fucking boring, dude. And like, and there's like an add-on that just tells you where all the treasure chests are, and you just follow the add-on. You go from one chest to another chest. It's like, how can you fucking make it that treasure chests, opening treasure chests, seems like work? They need to make special, original, unique treasure chests. Like the ones in Argus. Am I still in Argus? No, I'm not in Argus anymore. But like in Argus, like they had treasure chests. What would you open them up and get? You would get Veiled Argonite, literally a gray item, and you would maybe get a piece of transmog gear, which two of the three sets of transmog sets in Argus were recolors of a terrible set that was added in WoD with a garrison building. So yeah, like, come on, man. Like, let's get some better treasure chests in here. I want to see a massive golden shining treasure chest that whenever you open it up, it has a mount in it. It has like 15,000 gold. It has 2 BOE epic items, and it has some other unique thing that like you can only get into treasure chests, right? It's like a massive, like really, really cool like helmet, or like a golden crown or something fucking awesome like that. That's what I want to see, like a golden sword that's just like solid gold. That would be fucking cool. Yeah, massive big dick treasure chest. Yeah, a legendary treasure chest, exactly. Sharding abuse? Oh yeah, we can't make the game fun for everyone because 99% are going to be just fine, but there's that 1% that might abuse it, so hey, we can't do it. See, this is what I was talking about before with the 50 whack-a-moles. Yeah, obviously somebody like me is going to abuse the treasure chest. I'm going to be opening up a legendary treasure chest every 5 fucking seconds because I'm going to be asking everybody to stand there and invite me, and I'll get the treasure chest. Yeah, of course. Oh, so Blizzard shouldn't do it because of me? Blizzard shouldn't do it because somebody else wants to abuse it? Who gives a fuck, man? Like, they can't make the game around a handful of people that just want to play it in some kind of a weird, convoluted, contrived way. Right? They have to make the game fun for most people. And going around and knowing what's going to be in the chest before you open it isn't fucking fun.
Don't really need them. Rares and treasure chests are not really rare
True.
at all, and there is no reason for us players to open them if we want.
There have been times where I've walked by a treasure chest, and I'm like, that'd be a waste of time. I'm not going to pick that up. I never do that in Vanilla WoW. Even now, I go through a Vanilla WoW zone, I see a treasure chest, it doesn't fucking matter. If I see a level 20 treasure chest, I will go and I will click on it. Because you never fucking know.
Talk honest about it. In the past, it was always a good feeling to find a chest or a rare enemy. Like, I remember in Wallet of Draenor, when we first just visited the zones and everywhere were rare spawns and you killed them the first time and it was like, wow, there is rare and stuff like that. But now it's just like, oh, look there.
No, it's the first time. Like, I remember I made videos, like, at the beginning, because as soon as I got the WoD Alpha or the WoD Beta, I went on there and I saw all these rare spawns and I was like, oh my god, wow! And I killed them and I was going to make videos about them, and then I just realized it's like this guy just respawned. I mean, he's just respawning. Like, I thought this was a rare spawn. How's it rare if he respawns every 30 seconds? Rare for who? Like, come on.
There is a star on the mini-map. And do you think we can see some more really rare things in the future again? That are more exciting?
So I agree with your criticism completely. I think that treasures were better in Warlords. I think there were some problems with
no, they weren't.
Finding a pixel that was a single.
What the fuck do you mean they were better in Warlords? They're the same fucking thing. That's whenever you guys made the system. Like, how are they better in Warlords? The only reason that she thought they were better in Warlords is it was the first time. You know, now we've got it the third time. We know what's gonna be in the chest. What were in the chest in Warlords? Fucking nothing. What were in the chest in Legion? Fucking nothing. Well, unless you got a legendary out of it. But what was in the chest in BFA? Fucking nothing. Okay? There was no reason to do any of these. Like, here's the thing, right? You just fucking make it to where the treasure chests don't always spawn. Like, you can have some that are always there to make, for like the Timeless Isle. I was thinking it was the first time they did it, was in the Timeless Isle, where there are like guaranteed treasure chest spawns. But beyond that, you need to make some badass, like huge, like, these like giant, like fucking molten core Firelands caches that look like you're opening up the fucking Ark of the Covenant to find Noah's 10 Commandments. That's what I want to fucking see.
Ring, the bottom of a riverbed where you had to find the exact right pixel to click to loot the treasure, but having them tell more of a story, more varied rewards, that was a better system, and it's something we'd like to move back to in the future. When it comes to rares, those are tricky. I think we haven't really had true rares since Mist of Pandaria. I think even in Warlords, in a world where you can join cross-server groups, I mean, even sharding notwithstanding, the second you can join cross-server groups, which opens up tons of gameplay, the right way to hunt for true rare spawns often ended up being just server hopping. I remember back in Warlords, when we had rares in Tanan Jungle, people wouldn't actually move around looking for them. They would just sit at their spawn location and look for groups to join that had them up. So
the solution to that is to just remove it. Like, was it really game breaking that people made a raid and they just sat around at the at Pound Fist or wherever the fuck his name was, or the guy in the bird guy? Did it matter? Who cares? Like, it's not a big deal. It's still excitement. Like, oh man, the guy's up. Let's go over there. I mean, like, yeah, it's kind of contrived. Like, yeah, it's weird. It's not the way that it was intended. But it's still better than nothing. That's the thing. Is like, oh, people are using this in the wrong way, so we're going to take it out of the game. Well, at least some people used it in the right way. Now nobody gets it.
Those are some of the challenges that we face when trying to create that type of gameplay. It's something we're looking to do and actually may start to experiment with again in Rise of Ashara and beyond. But I agree with you that there was something very cool about that experience of a truly rare spawn that you come across, and that's just exciting to see.
Okay, cool.
I didn't get them out.
Another thing that people are talking about very often, are we going to see something like the Mage Tower in Ashitar, or maybe at some further future? So
that is a good question.
Class-specific solo challenges?
That's a very good question.
I think we were very happy with how the Mage Tower turned out in Legion. It's something we'd love to do. Yes, it's something we'd love to do again in the future. I think we don't want to turn it into this formulaic thing where, like, okay, every expansion we have the new Mage Tower. I think it's important that there be a good reason for it, that there be something exciting to reward from doing it, that it kind of fits into the context of the world. But we're definitely not done with that type of solo challenge. I think it was a huge success, a ton of fun, and we want to do it again.
Yeah, people and we.
It's fun. Like, it's funny. Like the Mage Tower was a huge success. The Mage Tower was the only thing really in in Legion. There was no easy mode for the Mage Tower. Right? I mean, like, you could wait and get better gear. Yeah, you could do that. But there wasn't, like, you still fought the same enemy. Every single person fought Agatha. They fought Archmage Xylem. And he had the same amount of health. The only difference was what that person did for their own character. The success of the Mage Tower goes against the entire philosophy that they've been designing the game around. Like, whenever you think about it, it's completely fucking true. There's no easy mode. There's no catch-up mechanism, really. I mean, you can get better gear, but you have to go earn that gear. Every single success that the Mage Tower has goes completely against the philosophy that they've been designing the game around. And I think they should keep that in mind.
Loved it. I don't know, it just felt like a good thing to do something for your character and just solo stuff. It's
exactly
cool. You announced Heroic Warfronts at BlizzCon for 8.2. Can you tell us a little bit more about the difference to the normal mode? For us, Warfronts are an interesting concept, but to be honest, they're just too easy and too straightforward every time to be fun. And we don't think it's even possible to lose a match. I don't really know if
it is possible. It's happened. It's unlikely. I mean, the Warfronts experience that you have on live today is really it's basically like an LFR encounter. Right, it's effectively looking for raid, and that's the audience, and that's the tuning. As we explained at BlizzCon, I think the gist of Heroic Warfronts is to create, the normal raid experience that is designed for a pre-made group that is coordinating, and turn that into something that a group of friends can do together. Is it going to be a super challenge for a Mythic raid group? No, that's not that's not something that we're trying to do here. But we want.
Why not? Why the fuck not, Ian? Why the fuck not? Can it be a 40-man warfront where you're aided with NPCs and allies of your faction, where you have to overwhelm the other faction and defeat them, and you can do this once every single rotation, and it gives you an item or maybe even a token you can turn in for a 415 item level version of a piece of gear from the 7th Legion? Why the fuck not? Why not have it be something like AV? Why not? Oh, you're so afraid that maybe people will want to do this. Yeah, they will. Make it 20-man. If they want to do 40-man, fine. Fuck it. Don't do 40-man. Make it 20-man. Why not take the Warfront idea and go balls to the fucking wall with it and say, here's something that's difficult for Mythic raiding guilds. Have fun. Because the servers are crashed with 40 people.
To make it a more involved, coordinated experience. And we'll have a ton more information to share on that, again, as Rise of Ashara actually.
Imagine, like, all right, you've got your fucking boys. It's like, Bill, all right, you get the wood. All right, Bill and the boys are going to get the wood. Me and Tim are going to go over here, and we're going to get the copper in the mine. And then, oh, we've got to have Ted up there that's holding the defenses. And you have everybody intercoordinating. You have these, like, little miniature, like, fucking micro expedition groups like your Rambo, and you're on a secret fucking mission. And you're all coming together to work together against the Horde. And it's actually fucking hard. It's difficult to do. Like, those are the types of content that Warfronts can create, not this LFR garbage where the fucking lead game designer has to clarify that it's even possible to lose the fucking game.
Hits PTR and we move our attention there. So that's, just wanted to clarify what we said at BlizzCon.
Okay, so maybe my next question would be irrelevant because you haven't announced a new Warfront for patch 8.2 yet. Will there be no one in this update, in the upcoming one?
We're not planning on a new Warfront in Rise of Ashara, but Heroic Warfronts will be what fills that vacuum.
Okay, Can you say something about the Barons, for example? We heard about some time ago. There was a speculation that Barons might be a new Warfront at some point, and
Oh.
That was a very that's not a thing we have planned. That was a very early internal prototype when we were first beginning development on Battle for Azeroth, before we had any of the new areas to play with. Some designers tried some of these concepts out in the Barons.
Okay, so Barons Warfront confirmed, boys. All right, here we go. This is going to be awesome.
Most of that stuff was taken out because it was never even made it to alpha. It was just an internal test. But there were some strings and some pieces of it that were still data mined. So
it was interesting to write about because everyone was like, there is a new Warfront and we heard something and stuff like that.
Were they really that excited?
Do you have any further plans for crafting? Because we think we've never heard a single player saying World of Warcraft has a good profession system. It's really boring. I don't want to say boring like in a negative.
It is. So here's what they could do. Blizzard, listen. Clip this. Here's what you guys do. Here's how to make professions viable and relevant. So you take these items right here, and you double the sanguicell cost, and maybe remove like the expulsum cost, something like that. And that makes the old raids relevant. And you make the items that you can craft BOE instead of BOP. That way it creates an economy, and also at the same time incentivizes people to do old raids. So that's it. Easy. Just go do that, it'll be fine. That's one simple solution.
Way, but
I understand.
And some would even say it's useless because there are a lot of bind on pickup items, no real perks or even rare recipes, and there are a lot of games out there with good examples for a better crafting system. Do you have anything like?
It's an area we're always looking to improve. Nothing specific to share right now, but I think historically the most successful crafting professions in World of Warcraft, I think, have always been the ones that sell consumable trade skills. Like, I think alchemy works pretty well, alchemy and herbalism or enchanting, where you feel like, yeah, you're creating potions and flasks, and there's a steady demand for these. You can use them yourself, you share them with your guild, you can make a lot of money selling them on the auction house. I think blacksmithing, leatherworking, tailoring have always been the more challenging ones, because the gear they create always competes with every other source of gear in the game. And the big challenge there is, well, if you can get crafted gear that's better than raid gear or equal to raid gear routinely, then just go to the auction house with a lot of gold and buy a full set of crafted gear, and now you don't need to raid. And
it's not even true. Wait, it's not even true. Like, because when were you able to buy an entire set of crafted gear? Never. The only time that you were able to do that was in WoD, ironically, after they changed the system, because every single piece had a crafted alternative. You were never able to do that. TBC tailoring? No, you weren't, unless you considered all of the pieces, including like tier 5 and tier 6, and combined them all together. Maybe you could pretty much have a full set. You could never do this. It's not even true.
You're just as strong as any other endgame player. Or if they're weaker, then, well, now crafting feels useless. So I mean, part of what we've tried to do there historically is some bind on pickup items that require materials from dungeons and raids. It's been the case going all the way back to Burning Crusade. We see people now, in the new Tides of Vengeance season, going in to get their title cores and try to craft their
new recipes and
pieces.
Stuff. Yeah.
Exactly. But there's a lot of, we see that as an area with a ton of opportunity for improvement. I think the possibilities for progression and really the fantasy of being a blacksmith and having that be something that you feel like you can specialize in, and you can actually be a better blacksmith than other blacksmiths because of that effort and that dedication. That's something that we agree we're definitely falling short on, and we'd like to do better in the future.
Okay. That's what they used to have in vanilla. Like, remember people, I don't know if you guys ever played vanilla WoW, like Burning Crusade, but there are people that used to put in chat, like, level 300, level 375, whatever, 450, blacksmith looking for work, LFW, and they would link all of the different, because that was back before you could link the profession itself and you could see what the person can make. So they would actually just type out all their best things. So like, yeah, I can fucking do fiery enchant. Yes, I can make the Lionheart helm. Yes, I can craft the molten core fire resist gear. And you would have that person make your gear, and it created trust, right? Because if that person's going around stealing people's gear and shit, people are going to spam about it, and they're going to run out of work because nobody's going to want to play with them anymore, right? And they're going to, for scamming. Like, these were systems, like, the problem is, like, I don't need to look at these, like, divine inspirations of things that the game could have. All I need to do is remember whenever they already had them in the past. I don't want to be like, like there's a video yesterday, but that guy said, he's like, I don't want to look forward to the past happening again. Well, let's think of something new too. But first we need to get back to where we were.
Okay, cool.
Hey, just real quick, sorry to interrupt, but we're pretty much out of time at this point. If we got time for one more quick question.
Sure.
Okay, cool, thanks. In terms of sound, zone design, and atmosphere, Kulturas and Sunda are just beautiful. It's really awesome to see Borealis at night, for example, or walking in Stormsong Valley with the sun rises, and it's pretty cool. Seeing this and traveling back to Classic or the old zones, just it feels like we are playing a complete different game. And if we just see Arathi Highlands and Darkshore and the overhaul of those zones, it's pretty cool. And can we get more of these ramps? Is this revamped? Sorry.
I mean, when you say it's like playing a different game, to a large extent, it almost is, right? You're going back to things that were made literally 10 years ago in a lot of cases, and the new zones always, they showcase the improvements in technology and the way in which our art has just continued to push itself forward. The big challenge, as we saw in Cataclysm, redoing an old zone is it's a very large undertaking.
People get mad,
takes away
too.
from resources that could go into making brand new content for the end game. And so it's not something we can just say, okay, we're just going to do this. We're always looking for reasons to do it. We're always looking for excuses. I think anytime we're setting a meaningful piece of new content in the old world, we're going to want to go back and update the fidelity, make it look better, make it look like it fits better into the modern game. That's what we saw with Darkshore. That's what we saw with Arathi.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't be surprised to see us continuing that treatment to select zones where it makes sense, and maybe over time, a larger portion of that old world feels more consistent with the modern one. But it's hard to imagine me in any time in the near future saying, well, okay, instead of making new zones for a new expansion, we're going to take this time and just go back and make Westfall look cooler. I don't think that would be in players' best interests overall.
No, I don't think that as well, but yeah, we are really like.
I like how they do the new zones and everything, and like that's cool, but to an extent, like I don't want them to like. That's what happened in Cataclysm. Like Cataclysm, like for me, Cataclysm was awesome because I did all of those old quests and everything because I was like a completionist. If I wasn't a completionist, and if I didn't care about that kind of stuff, I would have hated Cataclysm.
Liking the new zones and the new stuff you did for the 2 zones.
Awesome. Right. Very glad to hear.
Cool. Thanks for your time and thanks for the interview. It was really great to talk to you.
No, it was a pleasure. Thank you so much. These are really great questions. I really appreciate it.
Cool.
That's nice. I would say that was a good interview overall. Yeah, I mean, everybody in here is pretty positive. Yeah, Shuaxian, yeah, this is a good interview. Just gives better and harder content. Well, I don't know. I just feel like it's so crazy how the things that Blizzard says is like like they want people to like everybody needs to complete the content, right, or whatever. And like the Mage Tower goes against all of that, and it's like super successful, and they think that it's good. Like, obviously, it doesn't mean they should design all content with that philosophy in mind. But, I mean, I'd say most people, or at least a lot of people that I talk to at least, say the Mage Tower is one of their favorite parts about Legion. And it's like, make more content that's designed with that philosophy. It's like they went back 10 years in the past with the Mage Tower, and it was one of the most successful features of the game. And from my perspective, like, you think I would do community runs for Tyresis or these other shitty fucking alts that I had if there wasn't a Mage Tower? Fuck no, I wouldn't care. Why would I give a shit? It doesn't matter to me at all. The only thing that I did it for was to get the gear for the Mage Tower.